Sam Adozie scored his second goal in as many games to help give Saints a convincing win over Blackburn in what was the first league meeting between the two clubs in 18 years. Alfie, I'm going to start with you this week. That was the performance that we've been waiting for, really, especially the second half. You must have enjoyed that one as much as we did.
Yeah, it was about time it clicked. And to be fair to Glen, when we did the predictions league that he obviously cares so deeply about, he said this would be the one where it finally would. And he went for a 4-1 win, I think, if my memory serves me correct. So he was a bit unlucky there.
Thank you.
A really important goal from Sam Adozie, wasn't it, to be fair, though, because I thought he was good all game. But Blackburn, the way they set up in the first half was to disrupt Southampton. You know, managers, I think John Dale Thomason did this after the match as well. They keep calling Saints like a Premier League team, but they're not a Premier League team. They don't really have proven Premier League forwards. So when they sit up like that with 10 at the back, it's not easy to break them down. And I think Sam deserved the goal. Not really what you'd expect from him to get a corner goal, but it opened the game up. And I also thought James Bree was excellent for the first half. You know, obviously Ryan Manning came out of the team because of that little bit of a mix-up on the halfway line, which we'll probably talk about when we debrief Coventry. But he was really good, not just the corner, but I just thought he opened so much space. They obviously swapped the sides so that Kyle went out on the left and James played on his natural right. And you just see the way he gets the ball into the box a lot more. And then in the second half, I thought Stuart Armstrong exploded completely. There was this sort of weird false nine rotation going on with Will Smallbone and Joe Rebo, but I thought Stuart really came to life in the second half. And loads of moments we can go through. You know, obviously Jack Stevens back is brilliant, but I will let the guys dissect Charlie Alcaraz's penalty, so I don't want to go anywhere near that. I should say I'm coming live from Dortmund as well. I've got tickets to the Borussia Dortmund game later on this week. So if the signal's a little bit ropey, I do apologise, but that's what's going on.
From your hotel room or Airbnb? That's not your tasteful blind behind you, then.
No, the dodgy lampshade is gone, as John Hayter, I think it is, will remember.
As you say, lots to get into. Steve, let's talk about the sending off, really, because I felt that when Callum Britton got sent off for kicking that ball away, it kind of changed the game. It was nonsense.
I mean, just baffling. It's a long time since I've seen such a brainless sending off. I mean, Blackburn were well in the game, as Alfie said. They were well set up, they were well organised, which I didn't really expect them to be. Really, like you look at their results all season, there's been a lot of goals in them, so I didn't expect them to try and take that approach against us. But I mean, in fairness, for 44 minutes, it worked perfectly. I mean, we barely troubled the keeper for most of that first half. We looked a little bit stodgy again. We were kind of fine up until we got 20, 25 yards from goal, and then didn't really seem to quite know what to do with it. And as you say, Adozie was probably the pick of the players, but it was kind of just a bit frustrating, really. And second half had kind of started in similar vein, albeit obviously with the 1 goal lead, you're not quite so concerned by it. And then Britton does what he does. Free kick's given, it's an obvious free kick, and he's just decided he's going to lump it 50 yards up the pitch after the whistle's gone, and it's just the most obvious of yellow cards. And you can see the ref walking over to him, and you can kind of imagine referees in their mind just thinking, why are you so brainless? Why are you so stupid? And yeah, it was just an easy decision. And I mean, I had a quick flick through of Blackburn forum last night, and yeah, they were all absolutely furious with him, and absolutely justifiably so. And basically, as soon as that red card came, game opened up for us. There was loads of space, and I mean, if anything, us only getting 2 goals right at the end of 8 or 9 minutes of injury time, those goals should have probably come sooner. Their keeper's been their man the match by a country mile, but they've not really tested as much. They had the free kick in the first half, a couple of little breakaways where we were a little bit sloppy in the second, but other than that, we were just utterly dominant. And it was, yeah, I mean, that's kind of two excellent home performances back to back where we've kind of made sure of the result as well. I mean, Cardiff, as we've discussed, could have been 6 or 7 in that game too. But this one, we finally actually got a little bit more ruthless in front of goal.
I was fuming because I had 3-0 in the predictions. So when that fourth goal went in, I wasn't happy. Glenn, we talked about the first half a little bit there, but again, we dominated that opening half, but we struggled to break down the defence, and we're going to have to get used to these teams coming and putting 10 men behind the ball. I think they flashed a stat up on the big screen after about 30 or 35 minutes, and for all the possession, we'd had one shot on target again, and they'd had two.
This is a theme that's we're going to revisit when we talk about the Coventry game as well. Is we don't get enough shots on target for the amount of possession that we have, basically. And yeah, like I said, we'll talk about that with the Coventry game. But with this one, I found the sort of centre forward rotation. You're rotating in 3 players to the centre forward position, none of whom are suitable for playing there. And I just found that we weren't really getting anywhere. And I found the first, apart from when Sam Edozie got the ball, I found the first sort of 35, 40 minutes pretty boring, to be honest. It was a slow start to the game. Admittedly, as the guys have said, Blackburn set out to make it that way. And yeah, you're right. We are going to have to get used to that, especially now as we are building up a run of home wins. I think some teams at the start of the season, like QPR, who we're playing this week, they came kind of thinking they could get something. Whereas I think more teams are going to come in now with a little bit of a fear factor because Saints have won 5 games in a row, and that's what you want. You want to have that run of home results, and that's the way you get promoted. I've been banging on about that since the start of the season. You've got to win 15, 16 of your home games to have a chance, especially this season with the 2 runaway teams that we've got. So yeah, we do have to learn to play against it. After the Coventry game, Russell Martin made mention of the fact that we don't score enough goals, and they obviously, he's obviously tried to come up with a plan to try something a bit different in this particular game, and limited success, I would say. But we've won the game. You can only play what's in front of you, and if they're stupid enough to get someone sent off, then as Nathan Jones will tell you, it's not always easy playing against 10 men. So you have to make the most of it, and we certainly kept the foot down. And I'm relieved you're obviously going to ask someone else about the penalty because, I think we probably should have won by more in the end because that last 20 minutes, Blackburn just wanted to get on the motorway and get back home. But it was nice to see 4 goals going in, and the fact that 2 of them were late and they only had 10 men doesn't matter in the slightest. It's good for the confidence, and and it's. It's about patience, isn't it? It shows that this style of football, you have to be patient, and that's not always in plentiful supply for everybody. So, and me included at times, I have to say. But it was nice to get the job done, and relatively comfortably.
Alfie, what did you make of all the shuffling of the roles yesterday and moving things around? Because obviously Che Adams dropping out of the team, and then it wasn't obvious looking at the starting 11 who was going to start up front. And then watching the first sort of 15 or 20 minutes, I still wasn't really kind of sure what was going on. It was something that we probably didn't expect to see.
I think it's probably just a result of what Glenn and Steve have said, just trying to find a way to do better against teams that have got a low block, as they call it, 10 men behind the ball. So I think it's probably just a case of that, getting people onto their preferred sides in the case of James Bree. Joe Rebo, he's actually had a good week, hasn't he, to be fair? He's had another good week. And I spoke to Joe at Coventry on Wednesday and asked him, what actually is your favourite position? And he said, definitely in the 8, definitely as a midfielder, box to box. And then all of a sudden, 3 days later, he's up in the box, rotating with Stuart Armstrong. So there's obviously a few things going on there. But yeah, I thought they did well. Everybody played really well. I thought there were so many people that were unlucky to not be in the shout of man of the match. But I did actually want to give a bit of a sort of a shout to Sekou Mara, because I've seen some mixed opinions on Sekou's performance today, which I think is a real surprise. I thought he was excellent. He should have scored. He should have scored immediately after coming on. They had a 1-on-1, I think, was played through by Charlie. He should have finished that. But then good trickery for the penalty to win that, which we can again skirt around. And then he was in the right place for a good finish at the back post. So, he's going to be needed, I think, because Che Adams has got his goal and it hasn't really kicked on from there. So they're going to need some firepower. So fair play to him.
You agree, Glenn?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a gambling man, but I actually put money on Che Adams to score against Coventry because I thought, as I said before, he's a streaky player and he got the goal against Watford, and he'd hit the ground running against Coventry, and he fell flat on his face and was awful. It's just dreadful. And I thought it was quite interesting that a couple of the substitutions yesterday, Stevens coming on told Mason Holgate basically it's time to go back to Everton probably, and Sekumara coming on instead of Adams. I think that told a bit of a message as well, because usually it's been, there's been a pecking order, and Russell Martin has kind of stuck to that with regards to bringing substitutes on. And, like, for example, Ryan Fraser was ahead of Sam Edozie to come on as a substitute, but Edozie is proving to be a better starter. So, but yeah, I thought I agree with Alfie. I think Sekumara did well when he came on, and he was half decent in that other game. He came on as a sub a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, like Joe Aribo, he's kind of taking his chance. Small steps. It's not as if either of them are world beaters all of a sudden, but suddenly they're looking like they're not looking like liabilities anymore, which is good, and it looks like they might actually add something as we go forward.
Steve, do you want to take the penalty?
Yeah, I'd happily take that penalty.
You're taking it better than he would.
I must admit, I did turn to the lad stood next to me. I said, I bet he tries to Penenka this. It just felt like that moment.
Were you surprised to see him grab the ball though? Because obviously Armstrong had gone off, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And
So,
I didn't know whether Carl Walker-Peters was going to grab it, or there was a conversation going on there. But
it basically looked like one of those scenarios whereby, at that point in the game, where obviously Adam Armstrong is off. I think Stu Armstrong was off at that point as well.
Yeah.
So your kind of likely takers are all off the field. So at that point, while it kind of looks like, oh, he's just a young guy who wants to take the penalty and has gone sort of against team orders to grab it and sort of shoving people off, saying, "Nope, I'm taking this. I don't care what team orders are." Actually, there probably wasn't a pecking order at that point in the game because of the subs we'd made.
They've all gone off, yeah.
So no particular issue with him taking it, but yeah, it certainly felt. I mean, especially with the game at 2-0, the game was effectively done. So I think from his perspective, he probably also felt there was little risk in him trying it. And I mean, in fairness, a foot lower, and it's absolutely perfect. It kisses the underside of the bar and goes in. You say, "Oh, what an incredible penalty that was!"
But that was what Russell Martin said, Steve. He said, if you're going to take that penalty, you have to score it. And that was
yeah, absolutely, yeah, 100%. If you're gonna try the Penenka, you've got to make sure it works. Because you end up looking like an absolute mug if you make a mess of it. I remember we played Coventry number of years ago in the Championship, the Portvleet era.
Oh, God,
we got absolutely spanked up there, and they won a penalty, and I can't remember who it was, centre back who used to take their penalties, big lump who you would have expected just to smash it, went to try and Penenka it, and Kelvin Davis just stood there and just took it in front of his face. I mean, obviously we were 3-0 down at the time, so it didn't matter, but it's kind of similar vibes really. But yeah, I think if there was more riding on the game, I'm not sure he does the same thing really.
I was half joking yesterday, but
later.
It's good to find out these things before you get into like a playoff final where it really matters. Yeah, I don't think if he had one, if he had one at Wembley, I don't think he'd be doing the same thing again. So it's probably good to get it out of his system now. Alfie, I know you kind of mentioned this at the start, but Jack Stevens coming back on was another really good lift yesterday. His first appearance since August. It's going to be, Glen touched on the Mason Holgate thing, but it's going to be a nice problem for the manager to have going into this busy period at Christmas.
Yeah, Russell Martin was speaking at length about Jack Stevens during the week, because he obviously would say this, but he says he's just been brilliant in training. He hasn't knocked the door asking to start or anything like that. He knows that he has to wait and bide his time. It's fantastic to see him back. I thought that maybe they'd wait until Saints face Plymouth on the game after Boxing Day is like a bit of a touching moment, but there's no room for sentiment in football there, I suppose. Taylor Bellis apparently responded brilliantly to the substitution as well. I think I saw sort of a bit of a tussle going on the touchline when Stevens came on and Howard Bellis came off. It looked like Howard Bellis sort of like walked past him and was a little bit annoyed about it, but it was actually the complete opposite. He was saying, absolutely fine, you know, the game is effectively won. Let's get Jack back. Let's get him some minutes. But yeah, I wouldn't imagine he'll come back into the starting 11 just because Bednarek and Howard Bellis are so settled. And like I say, it's an amazing problem to have. But yeah, and Bednarek has really become Mr. Reliable for me. I think he's just so important to the way Southampton play.
Were you tweeting about his passes today? Was that your?
Yeah, no. At the end of the day,
passes
passes. Like he made more passes than any player has done for Southampton this season in a single game. But that doesn't mean anything really. But what it does show is that he's taken on that role. At the start of the season, it was Jack Stevens who was taking the ball from the goalkeeper and either distributing it to the left back, right back, or forward. Whereas now, since he's gone out, it's been Jan Bednarek doing that. And I just think he's so important to the way Ross and Martin wants to play out the back that you really have to give him a lot of credit. And he's really come into his own in terms of leadership, and you see him marshalling the back line. So you know what, fair play to him. I think this time, 18 months ago, nobody would have thought that Jan would be playing for Southampton. I know that it's a different league and it's not the same top level, but you've got to give people their flowers.
He's not going to change it at the back, is he, Glenn? At the moment, that's the two that we're going to start with at the back, and Stevens is just going to have to sit and wait for that opportunity.
You would hope so, because you know at the start of the season we were shipping goals all over the place, and then he's sort of like found this. You know, it's like the four, isn't it? Bazunu, the two centre halves, and Flynn Downs. Those four, to my mind, have you know, we're one of the best defensive teams in the league. Probably over the last 10 games now. Mm-hmm. So, and occasionally we throw in a silly goal like we did at Watford, but in the main, those four are reliable, and I do think that Stevens will have to sit and wait, and he's experienced enough to know that that's the case. There may be a case over this Christmas period where we have 3 games in 7 days or whatever it is, 3 games in 6 days, and then the FA Cup. I mean, of course you got that game coming up where the likes of Stevens and Holgate, if he's still here, you imagine will start. But at the moment, it would take a brave / foolish man to change the centre halves, because it's, you know, that all good teams are built from the back, and you know we now have a solid defence. James Bree, I think, has become part of that. I think he's going to get a run of games in the side now. Now they've, you know, I thought the experiment yesterday with the two fullbacks basically switching was good. I mean, Kyle is obviously going to provide more attacking output from the right, but when James Bree plays on the left, he offers nothing in terms of going forward. So, it might saw Kyle off a little bit, but at least the opposition have got to worry about both sides of the pitch now. Whereas previously when those two played, it was just Kyle that to worry about. So
it's not like Walker Peters doesn't have experience of playing on the left.
No,
absolutely,
he's done quite a lot in the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, he's just not quite as good over there as he is on the right hand side. But
there was a period under Ralph where I thought that was his best position. I don't know if you remember. I think it might have been like January 2022. He was absolutely excellent. I think it was actually just after the Euros when Italy played Leonardo Spinazzola. Is that his name? Spinazzola?
Yeah.
It's like an inverted fullback. I thought Kyle Peters is brilliant at that.
Yeah, it's the underlapping thing that you know, that seems to be the trendy thing for fullbacks to do. So it's not so much about getting wide and getting crosses in with your left foot sort of thing. You know, a midfielder goes wide and plays it infield, and then the fullback runs onto it. It's quite a common thing these days. So, and obviously, you know, as with Sam Edozie, you would think getting a run of games now on the left hand side, those two will their combination will grow. So. No, come back to the original point. I've gone off piece a little bit there. I don't see the back four really changing much unless there's an injury or a suspension in there. I don't know how we're doing with regards to totting up yellow cards and whether
we're past the 5 yellow cut off now.
Yeah.
So 10's the target. So
yeah.
Bednarek and Downs are on
both on 5,
I think.
Yeah.
So the referee. Yeah, it could be his opportunity then, isn't it? Jack Stevens is going to have to wait for the FA Cup or someone to get suspended. And
now the referees have calmed down a bit. People aren't, there's not so many bookings flying around, because I think
Michael Oliver about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, Diego, I did actually. Diego Dallo. I mean, that was more or less as stupid as the Blackburn player yesterday, but getting booked twice for dissent in the same game. Really clever. But
same minute.
That's Premier League. We don't care about Premier League anyway.
It'd be Russell Martin to pick up another booking, I reckon. I think he'd be sat in the stands before any of the players are missing.
Yeah, he was under the impression that it was 6 bookings for a 2-match ban as a manager, and I told him at the press conference on Friday it's actually 8. So I'm a little bit worried now that I might have encouraged him. You've got a bit of breathing. I think the club secretary told him it was 6 to try and calm him down.
It's going to be kicking off. Steve, good boost for the goal difference as well. I haven't looked at the goal difference for a while, and then all of a sudden we're at +8. So that might come into play towards the end of the season as well. So we need to put teams to the sword a bit more and take those opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously we've had a pretty ropey start in that regard, in that all of our wins were by the odd goal and all of our defeats were by multiples. So yeah, the fact that we've now clawed that back and we're now sort of racing away into the positive is obviously great. Just had a quick look, actually, last 10 games, obviously the only unbeaten team in that 10 games, also only conceded 7 goals. So that's kind of the baseline for where we're putting all these results together from. 18 goals scored. I think looking at Ipswich and Watford have scored a couple more. So yeah, we're doing all right at both ends of the pitch now. So yeah, now that we've kind of worked out what we're doing, with a bit of luck, full steam ahead.
It's going to be a busy 10 days, though, Glenn. Isn't lots of games kind of Ipswich and obviously Leeds dropping some points at the weekend, which was nice.
Ipswich are never going to beat Norwich, are they? I mean, they were never had a better opportunity, not beating them in 15 years, and Norwich are looking pretty ropey this season, and they still couldn't win yesterday.
You know why? Ed Sheeran was there. That's why.
Yeah, I did enjoy him celebrating.
Was Ed Sheeran and Elton John were at the Watford game, weren't they? That's what I think I saw this week.